What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome into a celebratory post-game Department of Hoops post-game show here. That's all I ever want in this world, Brendan. Not only did the young guys look amazing, they also got a dub, and I don't even care about the tank. I want to take as many of them as I can get through the course of the season. That was just awesome. I'm honestly at a loss for words. Just for our guy Riley, I'm going to stutter my way through this one because I'm just kind of like in awe of how good Bilal Coulibaly is at basketball.
Yeah, man. I mean, and not just Bilal Coulibaly tonight, but from Keyshawn George, from Alex Sarr, from Bub Carrington, all the young players that you want to see progress in and you want to have some confidence about going into the seasons ahead. This is a game where all of them showed out, were effective on both ends of the floor. Well, I'm sure we'll get into the defense and what each of these guys were able to do individually, but these guys just compete. They don't quit. The coaching so far seems to be really, really solid, and they just let them play. And that's what you need to do with a young group like this. And you're seeing the results: 2 wins in a row against, the same team, which is hard to do on its own.
Yep.
And a team that not only was projected to be better than us, but a team that I think that a lot of people were expected to be in the playoff hunt this year.
That was the thing I wrestled with pregame. It's like, well, the Hawks are like really beat up, like they're the walking wounded, and the Wizards are looking kind of good, but it is just so hard to beat a team two times in a row, like you said, and they went out and did it, man. And they're 500, which I didn't think they would be at any point this season, let alone 4 games into the year. So I will absolutely take it. Before we get too far into this, we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside Hard Iced Teas. Go have a couple. We all deserve them at this point for all the years of suffering, but now we have some celebratory drinks we can have. And Bet Online, basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, Bet Online has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. Bet Online has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. Bet Online has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, to political props. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Bet Online. The game starts here. Brendan, first of all, the costume. Walk us through the costume here a little bit. We're in celebratory mode here, so I'm all about it.
Okay, so it's LA Knight. He's a wrestler in WWE, and like I haven't been into like WWE in years. Like the past like 2-3 years, I started like kind of getting semi reinvested into it. But this guy I really gravitate to. He's really solid on the mic and is nice in the ring as well. So I'll wear this to work tomorrow. That's why I got it originally. We got a little costume contest in the office, so I had to contribute. My girlfriend actually got us a couple costumes, so tomorrow I'll be Quill from Guardians of the Galaxy, but for tonight and tomorrow I'll be LA Knight.
I love that. I guess pivot for you here. Who is the wizard who would make the best pro wrestler? I think it's either Bub for the attitude or Valanciunas for I could just see him being like the big meatheady stiff on the team that like goes out there and throws some dudes around.
I would either go Valanciunas, just for like a big body, like a Big Show type guy.
Yep.
Or maybe Bilal, someone who can be extremely athletic, like a Ricochet or a Montez Ford type guy. I don't know if you know who those guys are. Extremely athletic guys.
Mm-hmm. He could do a lot of stuff off the top rope or something, I feel like.
Yeah, those would be my two.
I like that. Let's just kind of run down how this went. If anyone didn't watch the game, well, first of all, shame on you. Wizards win 133-120. And just, they were good. And like, honestly, like they survived Trae Young going on a heater tonight. They did not shut him down 2 nights in a row. Although didn't shoot particularly well. He took a lot of shots to get his points. Trae Young played 40 minutes, was 12 of 28, which is 43% from the field. He was 4 of 13 from 3, which I don't know if everyone knows this, but Brendan, you are a knockdown certified perimeter shooter here. 4 of 13 would never happen on your watch, but getting 13 attempts up, that's our kind of night. Like that would be a fun basketball night to get that many green lights to go up.
Well, they did a really good job on him too, and that's what I don't think that the numbers will show him. Like people actually need to watch the game because they did a really good job on him, not last game, but this game as well. And that's kind of what has me worried about the Hawks moving forward is they don't really have another threat. Like there were a couple times where the Wizards were double teaming him off screens, and Trey passes the ball, but then other guys are like, there's that uncertainty there. They look a little bit unsure of what to do. They really don't have a whole lot of like raw talented players on the team. Like they have productive players. I love Jalen Johnson. I think
He's just not a shooter though. He's like not a threat to do that.
right. I mean, they don't really have another scoring threat per se on the team. That's not what they drafted Risa Shea to be this year. Their best knockdown shooter is Garrison Matthews. So it's like it's going to be tough for them moving forward to see to see how they form their team, to see what their identities are going to be. Because again, I think this was a team that a lot of people were expecting to be back in the playoff hunt, and they've kind of been like a teeter play-in team for the most part.
Yeah, to your point, like Risa Shea tonight, he had 17 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. He also had 3 turnovers, and they were kind of bad turnovers. He was 7 of 15 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3. I thought he was more good than bad for a rookie. Like I'm not mad at it, but he's not a guy you want to lean on.
Yeah.
And then Jalen Johnson was really good. 21 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. But he's still just not like, if he beats you, you're going to kind of let him beat you because that's just, it's 21 seems like where he's going to max out in a lot of these games. He's not going to go for like 40-point heaters or anything.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think that the Hawks have a couple really solid players. I love Jalen Johnson as a player. Trae Young is a very skilled player. I am not a fan of the style and the way in which he generates points and fouls. I just, some of the young people are going to be like, it's basketball. And to me, it's just not. That's not how you play the game with genuine intent. I don't like that. And they did a really good job. And there were a couple times where they lost him coming off screens and they didn't switch. And again, I don't know why they're not doing that sometimes. But those are the reasons he got some of his open threes. And had it not been, for a couple of those open threes, we could be talking about an even worse shooting night for him. You have to give credit to Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, Bilal Coulibaly, all 3 of them, and Jordan Poole even. All 4 of them were trying to give him the most fits that they could. And Coulibaly especially did a great job on him 2 games in a row. And look, another career night for Bilal Coulibaly. Not even able to just shoot the ball and defend, but again, starting to see that development of him finishing at the rim, him getting his game going in the mid-range, which the hang time on his mid-range game is crazy. He's going to be able to shoot over almost anyone. So continuing to be more consistent at that. And I mean, you can't say enough about how good he's been so far this season, even though it's just 4 games in. And again, how we were talking last time I was on the pre and post game show with you. I think that we're going to continue to see more nights like this. And it seems like Brian Keefe trusts him. He initiates the offense more than enough, which is what we wanted to see kind of last year. Maybe they didn't feel comfortable with him enough at that point, but this year they seem comfortable doing it. And not just him, SARS bringing the ball up, Keyshawn's bringing the ball up, Bub, JP. So they're letting kind of everyone bring the ball up and initiate and just play free ball. And you see the results from that when it happens. I mean, the Wizards were really, really solid on offense for the most part. There were a couple times where they struggled, where they really didn't have a scorer in the game per se or an initiator. And I think that the rotation still needs to get worked out a little bit. It kind of threw things off with Kuzma being out of the lineup with that. But this is a team that I think we're going to be able to enjoy watching for most of the year, even though it may not always result in a win.
Yeah, I think just on Coulibaly, like the handle just looks noticeably tighter this year. And I'm not going to name any names right now, but I remember who you are. I got in a lot of arguments on Twitter with people about, oh my God, him being at the Olympics and sitting on the bench is going to ruin his whole year. He needed to be at Summer League, getting those all-important 2 Summer League games in that he would have played. I'm just saying, whatever development plan they had for him seems to be working out okay. I'm not trying to take like a full victory lap 4 games into the year, but he's already taking a bigger jump, I think, offensively than I expected to see. Just the confidence to take the ball to the hoop and the willingness to let those threes fly pretty much anytime he gets an open look. Like, I mean, that just, the confidence is there, and that's really cool to see.
I was hoping he was going to develop a mid-range game. I thought that we weren't going to see that until maybe year 3 or year 4. But the fact that we're seeing it this year. And he's not taking a lot of them, mostly because on his 3-point attempts, he's just quite frankly left open, or he's trying to finish at the rim on his drives, which is what he should be doing. But the mid-range game so far looks really, really confident. Again, from not really having that in his bag almost really at all last year. I feel like most of his attempts came from at the rim or 3-point, and it was really just about this year, how much more efficient can he get in both those areas. And now we're seeing the mid-range game develop as well, and he looks like he's going to become a really solid 3-level threat for us on the offensive end of the floor. And again, this is not even mentioning the other side of the floor, where I'm pushing for him to make all defense this year. I think he can do it.
Yeah, the Wizards will be too bad, and I don't think he'll get enough national attention to do it. But I think he can be that caliber of player for the rest of the year. And even if you just hear like people who actually watch all the teams, whether it's the Nekias Duncans or Zach Lowe's or whoever, like give him a couple shout outs, like that's enough for me. Like that'll fuel me just to hear somebody on a national level talk about the kind of defense he's playing. And again,
Right.
someone who didn't watch the game, like you said, will say, "Oh, Trey had 35 points tonight. Like he didn't shut down anybody." But he had 15 assists because he had to pass a ton of open looks up tonight. He drew a lot of attention, but they swarmed him. And they basically just said, like, you might beat us, but you're gonna have to be so inefficient to do it. And I loved that. And honestly, like Chad is going wild right now, and we'll get to you guys here in a minute, which I love. Some like Michael Jordan comps coming out for Bilal in the chat, but
Yes.
I love it. But the
It's
guy he reminded oh, go ahead. I was gonna say the guy he reminded me of tonight was Indiana, Paul George. Like that's who
sure.
I felt like I was watching was that early career Paul George. Just like you mentioned the hang time on the middies and stuff like that. It just I don't know. I had like glimpses of PG.
Yeah, no, I saw full Jordan out there tonight. I agree with the chat. I saw full Jordan. Nothing else left to say. It's full Jordan.
Go with the chat. Always the chat. That's a good rally choice there. Just let's give the one vet who I thought had a really good game some love here tonight. Actually, a couple of them did. I'll be fair. Jordan Poole was 6 of 17 from the field tonight, which is 35%. It's his worst probably shooting night of the season. I'd have to check that, but I think that sounds right. But he's still 4 of 9 from 3, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Had 3 rebounds. The 9 assists were huge. He was not like despite going 6 of 17, I didn't feel like he was forcing things necessarily. He's always going to take like a couple heat check jumpers, and you're just gonna have to live with that with him. But he did like a lot of good things to try to get the other young guys involved. And he had 5 turnovers, but sometimes with him, like the turnovers are him doing like wild, reckless shit. There was one tonight where he drove right baseline and just threw it into nobody. But for the most part, the turnovers felt like because he was trying to make plays. And I can live with that. Like overall, I was happy with Poole, and he played defense again tonight. I'm never gonna crush the guy on a night where I felt like he was actually positively impactful on defense.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to forget to mention him at the top when we were talking about the defense, because he is noticeably showing much more effort on that end of the floor, at least in these first 4 games. And offensively, again, I think he's going to have moments where he's going to try to force it and do things that um, are probably characteristic. But it's toning down a lot so far from what we've seen, and I think that's the key. And the time you do try to do things that are maybe a little bit crazier, or you try to squeeze in a pass to a really tight window that you probably shouldn't throw, you can live with that because you know that he's trying to play basketball the right way, as opposed to games where he just tries doing that stuff the whole game, take shots away from everyone, and then we're like, why are you even on the court? What are you here to do to bring to this team besides potentially sell some tickets? And I'm sure he saw a lot of the criticism over the offseason, and I think that there is a different level of comfortability for him coming into the season. And I couldn't be more. Well, I could be more proud, but I mean, he's really had a really good start to the season, and I hope that we continue to see this good version of Jordan Poole, despite the bad shooting nights. Because, I mean, let's be real, I don't think any of us think that he's going to finish the year with like a 62% true shooting and shoot like
Probably unlikely.
percent from 3. I mean, that's not happening. He's going to have stinkers like this, and that's fine. That's totally fine. I'm not crapping on the guy. But again, I think from 3 ball, especially, he's continued to be efficient, and I think that's pretty key.
He's probably the best 3-point shooter in the NBA so far this year, which after the start he had last year, we'll take it from a percentage and actual made threes perspective. I got to think he's near the top of the list, if not at the very top. Just statistically tonight, you would look at the box score and say Jonas Valanciunas was like incredible. He was 8 of 10 from the field, 1 of 1 from three, 5 of 6 from the free throw line, had 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 turnovers is fine. He had 22 points, but he's a -4 in plus minus. And again, I don't love plus minus, but I do think that's indicative of what we saw on the court because he just hurts them defensively. Like their interior defense is noticeably worse when he's on the court, and he can help them when they have a second unit out there. It's not as good offensively because he's a hub you can play around. I do like the passing. Does seem like he only ever passes to Jordan Poole, but they've got a nice little two-man game going. But just they have to find a way if he's going to be out there. So when he's out there, they're surrounding him with their best perimeter defenders because it's keeping guys out of the paint. Because I don't know, he's a turnstile. Like guys get to the rim at will when he's the lone big man on the court, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he comes into the game and Sarr comes out, you look at what the Hawks did tonight. They went right to the rim, alley-oops, and they got a couple of those on Sarr too. But Valanciunas just doesn't have the mobility or the vertical really to be an effective rim defender. And I feel like we knew that coming in. And offensively at this point, I mean, he's probably just a post scorer and maybe a pop. He's going to be like what we saw, the free throw mid-range jumper. Maybe occasionally he'll hit one at the top of the arc. That's kind of the player that he is, and it just feels so limited that I would rather see a guy like Marvin Bagley out there who's extremely active on the offensive glass and can help get you more possessions. Athletic, is a better rim protector. Rashawn Holmes, much of the same. I'd rather see more of those guys than I would Valanciunas. But I think the reality of the situation that we're in is they probably didn't sign Valanciunas to that contract with the extension of keeping him all 3 years.
Right.
So probably going to showcase him at least for this first half of the season. And then if they get no trade offers on him, they'll move to someone else, maybe Tristan Vucevic or something after the trade deadline if they can't find anything.
They just need to like pray or bank on the fact that Rob Pelinka is probably not closely watching the Wizards and just sees these box scores from Valanciunas and is like, well, the Lakers could probably use a guy like that. Like they need another big, so somebody on this roster has to appeal to them. Of all of our centers, so maybe he's the guy. But again, I'm not trying to crush him. Like he was fine, but just they've got to figure out like the rotation around some of these guys. And similarly with Kispert, he was 6 of 14 tonight, 4 of 11 from three, but 1 rebound, 2 assists, and not much else. And he was basically a wash from a plus minus perspective. And again, I think that kind of represents things like if he doesn't go on an absolute like heater from three,
yeah,
he's just really limited. Like 4 of 11 is obviously like, it's solid, but to your point last, show, it's if he's 37% from three, like he's kind of meh. If he's below that, he's killing you because he's just going to get cooked defensively. But if he goes 6 of 11 from three, even like, okay, then all of a sudden, like he's a slight positive for you. And I don't know, he's maybe another guy that maybe you can package him and Valanciunas together. And the more minutes for the young guys, like the better they looked. And the stats kind of back that up tonight.
His shot is really weird because he shoots on the way up, but his arc is so flat, so he doesn't even get to the peak on his jumper where he should ideally be releasing it, and his shot's flat. So I don't think that you can be a very good shooter in this league when you shoot like that. That's just my personal opinion. And again, there are moments where he can get into a rhythm and he can go on a heater and make 3 in a row. But I think that's after he's seen one go in and he can consistently get that exact right timing that he needs, as to where if you have some more arc on your jumper and you make more of a rainbow when you shoot the ball, you have a little bit more margin for error when it comes to making or missing a shot. So I think that's the biggest issue with him. But what I saw from him tonight is kind of what I expect throughout the rest of his career. He's going to get a lot of attempts up, and there's going to be nights where it looks really good, and there's going to be nights where it doesn't look good at all. And so you come to the conclusion of somewhere in the middle, being like, okay, it's not the worst, but it's not the best. And I think that's still good enough for a team to buy that at the trade line at some point, especially if you have a team that has almost no shooters like the Magic. I'm sure would still take him if the right deal was on the table, for example. But hopefully he continues to get a little bit better and more consistent. But we're year 4, year 5 with him at this point. I don't see much changing on that.
We got the not so good out of the way. Again, those guys were fine. Like I don't want to crush them, but there's just some things to keep an eye on. But the real story here again tonight is the youth, right? Coulibaly, 11 of 14 from the field, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals, 1 block for 27 points, a career high again, and played suffocating defense. Keyshawn George, 5 of 10 from the field, still 1 of 5 from three. We got to get him to make a couple of these open threes, but 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. 11 points. He's been so much better defensively than I ever could have predicted. He looks much more fluid, just moving. And the guy's got like a wiggle to him or something. Like, I think he's going to take a similar jump, maybe not to the level Bilal does, he's not the same athlete, but like, I'm expecting next year for him to be like, a huge jump. I think like Bub and Alex, like they're a little more like I could see a linear growth, whereas like Keyshawn, I think could take like an exponential jump next year. Sar was 3 of 9 from the field, 2 of 5 from three, 5 rebounds. Like to see a few more rebounds. That would be nice. 2 assists, 1 steal, 4 blocks. I think he made the other team feel him with every one of those blocks. He had 11 points. And then Bub, 5 of 8 from the field, 1 of 2 from three, 5 of 5 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, only 2 turnovers. I don't know. Your pick, dealer's choice here, Brendan. Where do you want to start with any of the young guys here?
Start with Keyshawn. I mean, look, he's still not shooting the ball the best, but he's a smart player. He knows where to pick his spots on the floor. Defensively, he tries to be in the right spot. And tonight he was, for the most part. I mean, he had what? I mean, without looking at the box score, I just had it pulled up. I exited out of it, but he had like what I think 4 steals and 3 blocks or something like that.
Keyshawn, 3 steals, 0 blocks, but he was
Zero.
kind of
Okay, maybe I was confused. He had four.
no.
Yeah.
So Sar had 4 blocks, but Keyshawn was a deterrent. I mean, guys were not shooting over him, especially when he had the smaller guys on him.
No, he was really bothering guys, and I think that there were a couple petty calls on him when he was guarding
Yeah,
Trey.
I agree
Because I
too.
thought that he did a really good job on Trey Young too, especially when Trey was trying to maneuver in the paint and get it to the mid range. There were a lot of possessions where he played really well on Jalen Johnson when he was trying to get his mid range game going, and he stood his ground and kept his hands up, which is what you want to see from the young guys because if you keep your hands down at all or you chip someone even the slightest, they're going to call it on you. So
Mhm.
just having the awareness of being patient in those situations is going to be valuable, especially as the season progresses.
Let's let's talk about Alex Sarr for just a minute here. Like to me, again, the defense was really good. I'm not worried that he doesn't make shots. He's still taking good shots. He hit a couple fluid jumpers. Again, 2 of 5 from three. Like if he shoots 40% from three for the year, like we're cooking with gas all of a sudden. I'd
Mhm.
like to see him get a few easier looks around the rim still, but just the defensive impact, that's what you were looking for when you drafted him. And he's bringing that basically from day one. Again, only 23 minutes tonight, but they were like a meaningful, impactful 23 minutes. And he was a plus 17 on the night. Coulibaly was a plus 23. George was a plus 22. Poole was a plus 14. Bob was a plus 3. And then that's basically it for the positives for the team. So it was really that 5-man group and convenient. That's their starters that kind of put this team ahead for the night.
It really makes me like just seeing how well that unit played tonight. And not every team is going to be the Hawks. They're not going to play like that every single time. I'm sure they're going to have nights where all of them look not so good.
Mhm.
Uh, but it makes me want to just keep that starting five the same. And when Kuzma comes back, keep him on the bench. I know it's wishful thinking. They're not going to do it. But overall, I mean, you can't say enough about our four youngsters tonight in particular. Again, Coulibaly, Bub, Sar, and Keyshawn. I mean, all four of them a hell of a game. All four of them had two-way productive games, were effective on both ends of the floor, had big moments, and were able to close the game for us against a team that is led by Trey Young, who I wouldn't consider, but many would consider one of the more talented point guards in the NBA. So hats off to them, man. Always good to get a dub. I still root for the wins. I'm not
Yeah.
like, oh, lose now for so and so. Not right now. Once they get eliminated, maybe a different story. But
Plenty of them will come organically. They don't have to seek them out. We'll take them when we can get them. I'm with you completely.
yeah, you have to enjoy the wins when they come to us because again, we're probably not going to see many more. I hope we do, but the reality is we're probably not going to. And again, against the same team division opponent. So I mean, it's all good on this side right now. Again, led by the young guys. You really can't complain after tonight about much.
This is the first year in a very long time I would have actually taken the under for the Wizards win total, and then seeing the last two games, I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't a choice. But tonight, I really just like when I think back on the game mentally, the moments that pop with me most were defensive moments. But they
Yes.
scored 133 points tonight, and I still kind of don't know how they did it. I think it was Bilal being hyper efficient and Poole creating some looks for himself and others, but it's still even in a night where they give up 120 points, the defense definitely pops there. Let's catch up on the chat here a little bit. New Era 49 says, try to convince me why Bilal is not the best player on this team already overall. He's got to be in conversation for most improved and all defense. No argument. Best player on the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
I said this before the season started.
Yep. Let's keep it moving. Yeah, you did say that. I'll be honest with you, and I pushed back. So hats off, my friend. I was not ready to say that after game one, and you were all in. And I was like, well, so good call. Moneyman Steven says Bilal's the best Wizards pick since Wall? ? This second-year leap has been beautiful.
I still think you can put Beal in there, right? I mean, you still have to probably consider Beal as.
Yeah, Beal will have his jersey hanging in the rafters, and is like, I don't know, like one game away from being the franchise's all-time leading scorer. So I think.
I'll tell you what, though, we're getting there. We're getting there. Give it time, and then we can revisit this conversation in 3 years or so, and maybe we have a different opinion. But it's still way too early, man. I mean, Beal did so much for this franchise, as much as people hate him, and we got to remember when he was young, not the latter years where they gave him shit on a platter and said, "Here, work with it." So again. I get the hype, and I'm there with you. With the Michael Jordan takes, I'm with you. I'm with you all on this. But cool on my man Bradley Beal. Very good player.
Yeah, maybe not best pick, but maybe most exciting, given where they are as a franchise right now.
Sure.
Bullet Nation says Bilal is the face of this franchise. Give him the keys. No argument there. And Desan asks, how do you feel about Johnny Davis getting his option declined? If the Wizards don't want him, who will? Or is he going to have to play overseas next year? Like Lonnie Walker just signed overseas, and Lonnie Walker is a far superior player. So I don't know. Better learn Chinese, buddy. Memes seem appropriate here. But I wish Johnny the best of luck wherever he ultimately ends up.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, look, I think that there's a lot of stuff going around about the staff changing his jumper, and he could have came out publicly several times and probably slandered the Wizards for that, and he's kept his mouth shut. He seems to be a good guy in the locker room, and he tries his best when he's out there on the court. And I think a lot of people underestimate how difficult sometimes the transition can be from going to the NCAA and then going to the NBA. It is a leap, and you have to be both physically and mentally prepared for anything and everything. And it's just, I think, a lot harder, and a lot goes into it more than what people are willing to give these athletes credit for.
Caleb Hallberg says, this game was so fun without Kuz, which sucks because I really am a fan. They did win the other night with Kuzma as well. But I did have the same thought at a certain point in time where there was one part where you had the four young guys out there and the ball was just zinging around the court, and just this doesn't always look like this. It didn't through the first two games with Kuzma. So hopefully they can just kind of show him what they're working on over the couple games he misses, and hopefully integrate him in on the everybody eats mentality they've taken on since.
Probably not. Wishful thinking.
Yep, that'll get me pretty far. Some sicko in the chat named Will Clayton said, I'm going to have to consult my doctor about this erection I've had since tip-off. Come on, Will. No, I'm just kidding. I agree. I mean, there was a play tonight where Bilal dunked. I may have been a putback dunk or something. I don't even remember, but I just stood up and I just yelled really loud in a hotel room with pretty thin walls. So I don't know what these people think I'm up to over here, but
not Bilal related, but I got irrationally excited when there was a play where Alex Sarr was bringing the ball up, and it looked like he was going to shoot, and then Keyshawn cut, and he hit Keyshawn on the cut, and it was wide open. But I got irrationally excited at that, just how quick he was able to make that pass and make that decision. I'm just yes, and it's just one of the most basic passes you'll ever see in basketball. But that's kind of the stuff sometimes that gets me excited. I don't see the flashy stuff all the time, and the dunks and the step back threes, just make good basketball plays. And to see young players that can seem to have that kind of chemistry already this early is very exciting to see, man. It's very exciting.
There's one where Keyshawn just like normal had like a normal drive to the basket, and I was just like the same way, like, oh
Yeah.
my God, look what he just did. It's like, well, he did the most simple thing in basketball, but it was still
Right.
awesome. P said, wouldn't trade these 2 wins for anything, even in tank season. The young guys are visibly more confident together and having a great time. Agreed. Christian Gardner said, is Bilal already the greatest Wizards draft pick of all time? Already addressed that. Yes, the answer, he's actually the best draft pick of all time for any team in the NBA. And Set said, Bilal will save us. So I don't know how you argue with that.
No, you can't at this point. I mean, he's been doing it. So, I mean, what are we going to say? He's not doing it. I mean, the stats and the wins say otherwise. So,
that's right. Ben said the youth, I cannot talk tonight, guys. I'm so tired. I've had a very long day. Ben said the youth movement is here. They're all dogs. They're confident. They're not scared. Get rid of the vets. Pack them up. Big J52 said, yes, sir. Give these youngins 3 years and a ton of weight room time. They'll be 22 years old and dangerous. That's crazy to think about, man. Like in a couple years from now, when these guys are all checks notes, Jordan Poole's age, like, and you know he's hopefully matured if he's still around and the vet and pushing late 30s by then. Like I think we got a little something there, so that'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
Mr. Al said super experience boost and confidence boost for the young guys. Agreed. I think they've got to be riding high right now. Hopefully, just Brian Keefe is just letting them do their thing and rock out. Buddha Belly said Bilal announced himself today. No fear. And Brody said, go Wizards, go be cool. And Christian Rottenstrauss said, what happened to Bilal's 10th rebound? This is the second night in a row where the stats people have effed us. So blaming the NBA and the conspiracy against Bilal already. It's Wizards versus everybody. So that's how we roll. Manny Mo said these young boys are fearless. And then ... said, how many points does Bilal average a game now? How many does he average now, or how many do we expect he averages for the season? For the season, I bet he's going to end up around like 15 or 16 per game would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm going to go between 27 and 32, somewhere in there.
Whatever the league lead is, honestly. I mean, if he keeps setting a career high every single night of the season, I mean,
that's analytical.
That's right.
For you.
Mr. Howell said, Carrington has been so steady as well and very efficient. Totally agree. Ben said that summer on the Olympic team got Bilal playing on another level. I will routinely bash on Bill Simmons for just like bad takes sometimes, but he's the first one that like I heard make the argument that just being in the presence of greatness for young players is so huge for them development wise. And you see some of these guys, like someone takes a huge jump every year after an Olympics because they're around all these other dudes and they see what it takes to be like that level of good. And granted, there's some bums on the French team like Rudy Gobert. Just kidding. Everybody has to say Rudy Gobert's a bum or they don't let you have a podcast. But, they have some serious vets on those teams. And even just him being around Wemby again, like, it's just another opportunity for him to see like, okay, these dudes are putting in work. And that's what this experience is like. And it's clearly paid dividends for the Wizards so far.
Yeah, and you love that he was able to get that experience, and he didn't really have a big role with the French team, being able to start some games, but I think just being in that environment and something that's not NBA can help you get some perspective on the game in general and can help just give you more confidence, when you come back to play in the NBA and to be able to go as far as they did. I mean, look, they were maybe some Steph Curry bombs away from winning that game. So being able to be a part of and a growing French team, by the way, that the next time this happens, France is probably the team that takes it. I mean, let's be honest. And I think we all expect Bilal to have a much bigger role next time around, especially with seeing how his game has developed so far through these 4 games here with the Wizards.
My Wizards fandom trumps any patriotism I have. So if it's good for the Bilal taking over the league agenda, I'm willing to sacrifice the next gold medal. So I'm just putting that on record. It never makes no sense. Said somebody needs to trade for JV LMAO. He had 22 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Yeah, again, on paper, really good, but they still, to me, at best, a neutral, let alone sometimes in that negative. Like scoring is nice, rebounding is nice. Sometimes the rebounding I think is overinflated, but the 6 assists were definitely good. but ultimately, what did he give up? Like, how much did they give up while he was on the floor? And
Yeah.
there's more from It Never Makes No Sense in that in the chat about us being too negative about JV. You can see the game whatever way you want, but my eyes tell me, and the numbers back up, that they are at best not any better when he's on the court. So,
Well, I think that the problem with him, aside from the defense, which again, if you guys don't agree that the team isn't better when he's off the court because of his defense, I don't know what to tell you on that one. But offensively, I mean, when he gets most of his buckets, it's post stuff, and there's times like the other night, he's posting up and he's not able to get that one move off. Well, if he's not able to get that one move off, there's 3 seconds left on the shot clock. He's looking to pass to someone, and you're either throwing someone a grenade or you're turning the ball over and giving it to another team. Like it takes so much time for some of his moves to develop. And it's like, if he doesn't get the shot off and it doesn't go in, it's like we could have literally spent that entire 3.2 seconds doing something other than that. And I think that that's kind of where I am and my philosophy and my thinking of how the game should be played in this day and age. Look, if this was 2013 through 2016, you could probably get away with that. Today, I feel like you just need to be more quicker, and you need to be able to stretch a little bit more than he can to help make room for your other playmakers on your team. And I feel like there's just times where that things are just too clunky and it can throw the team out of rhythm. And it's not to say that that doesn't have value somewhere, and it does have some value here. I mean, look, he had some really good moments tonight too. As much as we want to, say he had some bad moments and is bad on defense, I mean, offensively, he did have some really solid moments in there tonight, but it doesn't outweigh, I feel like, what the Wizards could benefit more from playing a guy like Marvin Bagley or Rashawn Holmes, someone who's a little bit more athletic, can defend the paint a little bit better. And again, I think for a young team, you need to be able to play defense, right? I mean, you can run up and down the court all you want and shoot, and you either live or die by that some nights, but you got to be able to defend. And I just think that he doesn't give you the best chance to do that at the position.
Yeah, offense good, defense bad is kind of where I land with him. I'm with you on the play Bagley, and he's bad defensively too, in my opinion, but at least he's more aligned with the younger guys from a pace perspective. Like, he gets up and down the floor quicker, and I think that facilitates how the rest of them want to play. I don't ever need to see Rashawn Holmes play another minute in a Wizards uniform. I still don't really get the really creative signing to get him on a team option next year, or whatever flexibility that may or may not give them. But yeah, at least Bagley's young enough that you think like maybe you could turn him into somebody who can move his feet a little bit better. I don't know. I know what Valanciunas is. I think other teams around the league know what Valanciunas is. So it is what it is.
I'd rather see Tristan too, but I think realistically right now that's not going to happen. So until they open the window up for him to get some minutes, then I would much rather see Bagley than Valanciunas until we get to that point. Then sure, then you could play Tristan and Sarr all you want and, call it a day there. But until then, just trying to be realistic with what they can do at the moment, I'd rather see Bagley.
I think if you are going to play Valanciunas, and this is where maybe I was poorly articulating earlier, but you just need to surround him with your better wing stoppers. Like, he needs to be out there and play his minutes next to Bilal and Keyshawn and whoever else you think. Maybe Brogdon when he comes back, if he's healthy enough to actually guard anybody. You can't have him out there with, Poole and Kispert and insert other not as good defender. That's not setting him up for success. At least if you can stop people from penetrating with good wing defense or perimeter defense, maybe it makes him a little less exploitable. So it's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
I just still can't pronounce my guy's name here, so I'm sorry. Tell me phonetically how to say it once, and I will get it right for forever. But Ite, Itay, Ite, I don't know. But great comments. So this is an incredible game. 3 rookies and a second-year player winning in the fourth quarter against a decent NBA team. That just doesn't happen. Yeah, I agree. He thought Poole and Valanciunas played well, and yeah, I think overall I'm with you. Coulibaly said, sure, the Hawks were depleted, but this win came without Kuz. I don't know what I mean by that. It's going to keep coming up, and this is the Ewing theory of do you take the air quotes best player off the team? And sometimes they play better, but the ball moved more freely tonight, and I think that was big for them. So there's probably a little bit of something to that.
Yeah.
Again, it never makes no sense that you all are way too negative on JV. He really sets up Poole with space creation. I do think their two-man game is really good. And that's where I was going to the beginning. Like, I actually don't think JV ever passes to literally anyone other than Poole. At least I don't remember those times. But yeah, that is a nice benefit, and it gets Poole open. And I do think Poole benefits from a couple easy buckets a game from
He does
Valanciunas.
for cutters. He tries, and sometimes they're turnovers. But I like the thought process of if he sees someone go to the rim and he thinks they have any chance of getting a step, he throws it. And sometimes can be maddening if it happens 2 or 3 times in a row. But, I like the thought process. He's trying to get the ball to someone that's moving, which I think is what I was pointing out on the last show sometimes with Kuzma. Like, Kuzma would have the ball at the elbow, and everyone's just, like, standing there
No
watching.
one cuts, yeah.
I think that's the key with JV too, is people got to be, helping him out when he has the ball on the elbow or at the top of the key. You got to move, and he'll at least try to find you, which I do appreciate from a big.
Zega says youngest starting 5 in Wizards history, which is just awesome. I mean, just youngest starting 5 playing, let alone, like getting a start together is amazing.
We're here for the record.
Yeah, exactly. Buddha Belly says JV needs time to get used to the folks around him. He's got kids around him who don't follow sets and do random things. Buddha, do you know what they're running to know who or isn't following the sets? I just don't think that that's based in anything factual to know that. I mean, if you're just assuming, hey, they're rookies, maybe they screw some things up, so be it. But
I mean, the chemistry I'll give you. I think it's 4 games into the season. I think
that's true of everyone on the team. I mean, that's what it is. But the young guys have chemistry with each other. But I think that's where I was going with the pace thing. Like, when you're slowing up to wait for the biggest plotting guy on the court sometimes, and you're not playing the way everyone else on the court is naturally geared to play, is that chemistry or is that fit?
Right. This isn't necessarily like a crap on Valanciunas fest. A lot of this is style and how the Wizards play and the other guys that they have on the team. And, sometimes opposites attract, and there are moments where I'm sure Valanciunas will bail us out in a possession where we haven't done anything and we got to dump it down in the post for a bailout bucket with 4 seconds left on the shot clock. I'm sure we'll see a lot of that this year. But overall, so far, what it seems is just fit and style seems to be the biggest barrier so far. It's not necessarily a knock on Valanciunas. Valanciunas has been a very solid player pretty much his entire career, whether it was with the Raptors or the Pelicans or whoever.
He's just bad on defense. He's been bad on defense for a couple of years. Like, it is what it is. I'm not going to argue that with anyone. But none of their other bigs, other than Sarr, are particularly good on that end. So fair enough. Christian Gardner said, "I wish Sarr got more screen contact like Valanciunas does." That's another area where he can mentor Sarr on those things, and Sarr's just going to have to get bigger, and I think that'll start to naturally catch a few guys too.
Get Gortat to come back. He helped out Gafford. Just get Gortat to come back again. He'll tell you how to set a proper screen and how to hurt somebody. He'll tell you.
They'll call you for like 3 moving screens in your first game after working with Gortat, but then you'll be good to go for life. So
yeah.
With it. David Confield said, Poole took Bilal under his wing since the night Bilal was drafted. You can see the improvement leap this year. Poole's a great leader. The mic'd up thing from him I thought was awesome. I liked everything he said there, so I'll give him a lot of credit for that.
The mic'd up thing was kind of funny to me, though, because mic'd up, and half the clips are him just standing there and not saying anything.
Chilling.
I'm not saying it's a bad look or anything. I like that he's clearly a leader on this team, and he's a guy I think that the young players on this team gravitate towards for support, whether it's, off-court stuff or in-game mentals, things like that. But yeah, I thought that stuff, they're like, all right, Jordan Poole mic'd up, and it's just him or him driving and just playing basketball with nothing being said, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Maybe the best editing job of all time.
I would have liked to hear the mic'd up what he was saying to Risa. I would have liked to hear that. You could have dropped that one monumental, but perhaps there was some stuff out there that ain't exactly PG. So
budget cuts. So always budget cuts.
Yeah.
Sam Hershey says, "I'm dreaming big. One more top 3 pick with this young core, and you start building to win." Yeah, I agree. I think they're doing the right thing so far, and this deconstruction phase that they said they were in before the year, we might be done with all that already. We're all the way back up, baby.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's 4 games in, and basically, we're still getting used to this regime and exactly how they function. And so there's always a little bit of uncertainty when a new GM or you have a new coach or you have a new slate of players because it's like, oh, we've been through this before. We know how this is going to go. But I think we've kind of entered now completely into uncharted waters.
Mhm.
And the early results from this have seemed to be really, really positive. And I hope that we continue to see a lot more of this as the season goes on. And I'm sure we will. There's going to be some rough moments, and there are going to
Yeah.
be some nights where we go, what the fuck? But, pardon my language, but that's
Okay.
going to be for like any team in this league. There are going to be nights where Nuggets fans are like, what the heck is going on here? There's going to be nights where Celtics fans are like, man, we're not winning the title this year if they're going to play like that every game. Like, it's going to happen with every team, especially a team like us where the best players are going to be age 20 and under. So we have to keep that in mind. But man, I tell you, there's nothing better than getting some early season wins, especially in a year where we're not expected to get many of them. So you got to enjoy them while they're here.
I think the Wizards will still realistically suffer the most 20-point plus blowouts this season of any team in the NBA. Just being honest, but when it does click on a night where they all play well like this, you ride the wave and enjoy it. Joseph O asked, "What does Jordan have to do to stay on this team in 2 years?" By Jordan, do you mean the new Michael Jordan, Bilal Coulibaly? I'm assuming he means Jordan Poole. Just play like you played tonight. Make a few more of those shots, maybe, but move the ball around, be instant offense, and be a leader. That keeps you in consideration to be on the roster at the very least.
Right, and be a playmaker. Like find guys. Like you don't have to just dribble to create to find your own shot. Like anticipate where the defense is going to be and make the right play. That to me will win me more over than trying to go ISO every time and then throwing up a step back with 2 seconds left on the shot clock. So and I think again, he's done a good job of that so far this year, continuing to be a playmaker and get guys involved. And I'm sure we'll continue to see more of that version of Jordan Poole, the version we've seen so far this year, as opposed to the version last year, which was less than desirable.
Once we turn Kuzma into the version we saw 2 years ago instead of the version we saw to start this year and integrate them all together, maybe the Wizards do win the championship this year. You just can't rule it out. Janelli 1810 said, "Everybody waiting on the Spurs, and guess what? We're it." You're darn right we are. So I'm looking forward to just more fun games to watch. Your next opportunity to watch the Wizards is on Saturday night at 9:30 p.m. at home against the Miami Heat. Last I checked, tickets kind of reasonable because I think 9:30 on a Saturday night in DC is probably a tough sell. But hey, maybe it's a good opportunity to go see them look competitive. I don't think the Heat have looked like particularly impressive in the moments I've seen so far this year. So maybe we can make it 3 in a row. I don't
Look,
know. Get greedy.
it's early in the year. We're getting a lot of home games. Go and enjoy these games while
Sure.
we can still push the finals agenda and the MVP agendas. You got to get out there and do it and support these arts, man. If I was home, I know I'd be there.
Brendan, anything we haven't hit on tonight that we need to before we wrap this thing up?
I don't think so. I think that we've touched on everything that we've needed to touch on, at least in my mind. And again, I mean, I think that you can't come away disappointed with anything from this evening. You go, yeah. Someone mentioned earlier that they were able to close the Hawks out, and I was waiting for the Hawks to go on this big run where we would end up losing by like 7 or 8 points. But Keyshawn and Bilal and Bub just kept trucking along and kept making plays and again, that's what you want to see from these guys. It's one thing to compete, which I'm sure we'll see the Wizards do a lot of this year, but can you finish? And I hope that we see a lot more of the finishing of games that lead to wins. We would love to see more of that around here. We don't get enough of that. We need more of that.
I always like to sum these things up now. This season, this will be my new move is 3 things that I most enjoyed about this particular game, my 3 positive takeaways. The cool volley leap is real. The young core is built around, defensive instincts. They can all defend to some varying degree and are all going to end up eventually being net positive defenders, I think. And the Jordan Poole just maturity leap is another one. So those are my big 3. There's plenty of other ones you could take away from this game, but just it was fun. That's probably the biggest thing. I enjoyed watching Wizards basketball, and that hasn't always been the case the last handful of years. So we'll take it.
I would agree that I will add a surprise one, not really a surprise one, but Brian Keefe's coaching so far, we heard before the season about trying to get everyone involved and letting more people be, more players be initiators of the offense. And we've seen that so far, and that's been consistent, and it's led to positive results. Again, back-to-back wins now to start off the season. So, props to Brian Keefe. And there are going to be some nights where we're like, what the hell are they doing? But you really can't, I feel like, criticize what they've been trying to do on both ends of the floor. For the most part, there's still some stuff they got to work out. I think that is just more player miscommunication than it is actually coaching, and they got to iron that out. But I think the coaching from Brian Keefe so far has been solid.
Yeah, it's a great one. Last thing, the chat. We appreciate the chat. It was popping tonight. Thank you all for doing that. Whether we do or don't agree on all these things, really appreciate the engagement and just hearing your perspectives. And it's cool to, just kind of go through and see where everybody was at. And again, the other thing we learned tonight is that Bilal Coulibaly is actually better than Michael Jordan. So take that and run with it, Wizards fans. Hit that like button for us if you're watching on YouTube. Rate, review, subscribe, all the good stuff. And before we close out, Brendan, where can people find you?
Yeah, find me on X, as it's called now, I guess. Threes is tries. Follow the Wizards of Gallery Place podcast. If you guys aren't subscribed, please make sure that you do. Thank you.
Remedy that right now if you are not. That's just thing number one, priority number one to go doing that. Brendan, thank you for doing this. Really appreciate you for hopping on here. And hopefully we have more of these fun ones to talk about as the season goes on.
I'm sure we will, and I look forward to chatting with you more about it.
All right, everybody. Like I said, presented by betonline.ag. We'll catch y'all next time.